Good afternoon, everyone. Tagaho. I'm very happy to be here today. I always wonder how it was to work in the office before we had email and when everything was on paper. What was it like to be an engineer, an architect, and a contractor before we had email, before we had CAD? Of course, these technologies have radically changed the way we work individually, each one of us, by improving our efficiency. But I think more importantly, they have changed the way we work together, the way we interact and the way we work in teams. And that's the reason why they're so prevalent today. We believe that BIM hold the same promises. And BIM is going to change the way we coordinate and the way we communicate on our project. And that's the idea I want to share with you today through a couple of examples taken from Dragages' recent experience. The journey today starts in Macau, almost 5 years ago on this incredible project, Macau Morpheus, designed by Zaha Hadid and engineered by Bureau Happold for Melco. It's a tall building, 150,000 meters square, and 770 hotel rooms of high luxury. You see, it's also the first building in the world, high-rise building with an external structural exoskeleton. And it's not any kind of an exoskeleton. You can see the complexity of the geometry and thousands of steel pieces, tens of thousands of cladding and facade pieces to be brought together and installed together. Dragages was lucky to be the contractor in charge of this construction, and we had to manage this incredible logistic challenge. And for that, we embarked on the BIM journey. So our 3D, we set up a 3D coordination for this project with the objective to secure 100% of the off-site fabrication by resolving all the design coordination and all the construction sequence in advance to make sure the right piece comes in the right place in the right time. That wasn't an easy task because we had mostly 10 main contributors from the concrete to the steelwork, permanent and temporary, and all the facade systems to be put in place. So we had to set up the minimal rules and standards for everybody to work properly together and the geometry to be properly managed. Now what we decided is that each contributor would be working using their preferred standard and the preferred format. And that's not an easy choice because we had to manage everything down the road and make sure everybody talks well together. But we made that decision knowing that it was the best choice to guarantee the accuracy of the geometry from the design down to the production. So we allowed that. The team we had set up to do that managed some BIM modeling using Revit, but we mostly had to take care of the coordination and the check of the model in Navis work. And in doing that, what we did essentially was to assist our subcontractors by managing their production process and doing some quality check in the meantime, make sure everything was correct. And if you think about it, philosophically thinking, it's not too different from what we do on site. As a contractor, we make sure that the production process is carried through efficiently. We make sure that the quality standard is met, and that's exactly what we did in BIM. Just it was virtual, it was a kind of digital pre-construction. So we were relatively familiar with this process. What we were not familiar with is the amount of information and the incredible ability that BIM gives you in terms of processing the information. Sophisticated use like algorithm and parametric design, which we experimented on the project. If you imagine someone asks you to check if there's enough clearance to install every single cladding panel on the project, knowing that there's maybe tens of thousands of them and they're all different shapes, the traditional approach would be to design each one of them and check by CAD or by 3D. We actually decided another approach was to set up a parametric script and automatically check all of them. And that was successful in the end. It was absolutely the only way to tackle the number. The great thing about BIM is that once you start preparing it for one specific use, which is your core use, in our case was 3D coordination, then it becomes available for all sorts of other uses. And there's an opportunity factor that's very prevalent. In our case, we managed the construction sequence using BIM. It was probably the first time we ever did so. So we had to make sure the sequence was well understood and coordinated amongst all the team members. And we could also apply it to safety and logistics and access and lifting. This is definitely the magic of BIM is once you do it for one use, it's available for expansion, for more usage across the project. The organization we used for this was to have, simply put, the BIM expert and the method expert sitting side by side. Our BIM expert knows what the model can do, he knows the technology, and the method expert doesn't know BIM, but he knows what he needs at the end of the day, he knows what he needs to use the information for. And when these two guys sit together, well, that's when we create value, that's when we are able to improve our modeling practice, to improve our standard, to deliver something that actually meets the demand in a more efficient way this time and the next. So of course in the future we try to not have two different people sitting side by side and actually integrate this process. But you imagine that was 5 years ago and was the beginning of the journey for us. Also at the end of the day, everything you see on the screen now turned to be put into a method statement, printed on paper. And it's a little bit of a dissatisfaction to see 3D modeling put on paper, but that was the most efficient way for us to communicate it. That was asking the question, that's a starting point, how to make BIM more available through the project team. Not only through the project team, but also to non-technical people, working around the project. As an engineer, I know how to read a cut section, I know how to read some very technical details, but that's not everyone. But as a contractor, it's very important for us to make sure that the whole team working with us on the project is up to speed with all the stakes of the project and that we have a very efficient, in-depth understanding. And for that, BIM is a key tool. We use design and construction animation for a long time to make sure we can manage the risks associated with other decisions. When people around you understand what you're going to do and exactly where it's going to take place and understand it, then it's easier to get some feedback and manage their decisions in the process. It's so important that we have decided to make this a key corporate BIM objective. We have set up a dedicated team in the office, and the methodology is constantly evolving because the software we use are always different and constantly evolving, and the projects are always different. But at the end of the day, what we need to make sure is we're properly understood by everyone. There's again an opportunity factor when we develop this technology, is that once we want to do some 4D modeling as fast as possible, we internally need to develop some standards, some common practice on how we set up a BIM model and how we set up a program. And these standard practices, step by step, build up a workflow, a comprehensive workflow, which then can expand to other standards like quantity takeoff. And before you know it, step by step, you're going into a full integration of your workflow, of your process into BIM. And this really brings us to another level of maturity. We may not be there yet, but it's important to appreciate that once you put the first steps in, then the journey just starts and you keep on going. Not only do we show animations to the people working with us on the project, that's a bit restrictive to have them sit once in a while to go through an animation, thank you very much. We also want to bring some more interactivity in the process. And again, this is very key to connect with all the stakeholders. What I'm showing you at the moment is actually a project from our sister company in Singapore, and it shows some innovation that we're bringing to Hong Kong at the moment. The project objective was to share the same direction across the project, from the consultants, the client, the contractor, the subcontractor. It's a design and build, so we were lucky to be able to start the project in BIM from the very beginning. And we did that setting up a comprehensive BIM management. We made the decision to model everything internally, and that's not an easy decision because, of course, the team that it implies it's quite substantial. It's relatively resource hungry to build up all the BIM model for a building like that. But we also believe that that's the best way for us to get some experience, some first-hand experience on how we can set up good BIM processes, what works, what doesn't work, and to improve time after time. We were lucky on that project to have BIM ready very early in the process, and this really helped us support some key technology and some new adoption of new technology on the project. I mentioned previously 4D modeling, which is now a staple on most of the project we work. Also virtual reality to give a good understanding to the geometry of everyone. But what we implemented that's on screen now is real-time rendering. This for us is really a game changer for all the interaction with the clients, interaction with all the end users, everybody not really technical in the team. Because we can now have live reviews every week, every 2 weeks, where we sit everyone and we walk through the model. If you want to see what's happening in this room, let's go in this room. I give you a look. If you want to display something, to remove something, we can do it on the spot. And we gained the time that was previously necessary to prepare an animation, which was actually not really showing what you wanted to see. This is really a definitive help in the decision-making process, and it changes the way decisions are going to be made on the projects. Of course, for all this to happen properly, the BIM model has to be ready very early. If we want to sustain the BIM adoption and to meet the expectations of BIM, which are more and more specific, we want to have 4D modeling, we want to have 3D walkthrough from the beginning of the project. This becomes standard. So how do we sustain this availability of the BIM model? Something we see sometimes on the project, because BIM is not yet a widely used technology, is that some people start working on the project with traditional tools and leave BIM for another time. And we basically have two parallel processes because BIM has to be done. But then in doing so, we fail on one of the BIM promises, which is to have one source of truth and all the key information in one place, the common data environment. So how do we reconcile all of that, and how do we make sure BIM is just one place with the integrated information? So in that transition, we see maybe the first step is for us to train our technical experts. And I mean the design people, the method people, the program people, for them to be able to work in BIM, to work around BIM, to know what it is and to be familiar with it. And for that, we need to seek support from expertise center like the CIC, but also Dragages being part of a global company, we can pull expertise and experience from other sister companies abroad and bring some practical cases to Hong Kong where we operate. We also, and that's the second point, to be fast, we need to be clear and mature as of our BIM processes. We need to settle on what exactly do we mean when we say we're going to make a BIM model. What's the typical practice for us? What's our recipe for a BIM model? And in terms of organization, team organization, what's our organization for a BIM model? We have to gain some maturity for ourselves about this, and that's the process where we are. But now, even if each one of us on a project, contractor, consultant, and client, even if each one of us is BIM ready, every project is different with different partners. And that requires adjustments to the workflows. And this takes time at the project start. And this time at the start of the project is very critical. So how can we make sure we don't lose that time at the start of the project? And for that, we really need to make the case for BIM integration. And I mean that we share experiment. We experiment and we share the experiment together to have the best practices shared in the industry. That's how we're going to develop some standard across Hong Kong, across the industry, that will really help us to understand each other, to understand the expectation that each one of us has across the whole value cycle of the construction. This has to involve clients and consultants, contractors and facility managers. And once we get there, and we're really committed to get there, then as a contractor, then it's going to be much easier, because when I start on a project, I will know exactly how the design is going to be given to me, in what format. I will know that I know it will make sense with my contract data, I know it will make sense with my program, and I know my suppliers and subcontractor will know how to use it, because it's going to follow some agreed principle that we work together. So once we are there, it really becomes a change, and we can say, I don't really remember how it was before we used BIM. Thank you very much.